Why don't we like ourselves? What are some of the reasons why we hate ourselves? If you've ever read the book called Preparing for Adolescence, written by Dr. James Dobson, if you're in 5th, 6th, or 7th grade, you need to get that book. Parents, buy that book for your children and have them read it. It is a wonderful book and excellent for people going into junior high and beginning high school. So if you are in high school and you've never read that book, go and buy it and then read it just so that you know what you were missing. It is a very, very good book written by Dr. James Dobson called Preparing for Adolescence. And in the beginning portions of the book, he gives us a number of reasons why people don't like themselves, why people constantly feel awkward, why people constantly feel like they're not something special. Let's take a look at a few of them together. Put-downs. He says put-downs are one reason why people don't like themselves. Why? Well, put-downs work on a very simple but horrible principle. It was quoted by Hitler. Hitler said this: if you say a lie loud enough, and you say a lie long enough, eventually people will believe you. Put-downs work on that same principle. Because someone constantly puts us down and constantly tells us that we're not worth anything, eventually we begin to believe them. How does it work? Well, let me explain it to you. You see, if you take a child who is 4 years old and you begin to call them, you stupid idiot, for the next 10 years, what are they going to think when they're 14? That they are a stupid idiot. Now, let's face it, sometimes, especially as kids, we do some dumb things. Okay? I did dumb things while I was growing up, too. We all do. Like one time, how many of you have ever seen or watched the movie Back to the Future? You guys know that movie? Especially some of the adults. Some of the kids are like, I've never seen it. I'm old, I know. But back in 1985, when that movie first came out, I was 10. And when I watched Michael J. Fox in that movie, my friends and I thought he was so cool. Especially like in the beginning of the movie when he jumped on his skateboard and skated out into the middle of the street and grabbed a hold of a moving car. We just thought, wow, that's awesome. So as a 10-year-old, we decided that we were going to be Michael J. Fox. So what we did was we got our skateboards. Now, I, at that time, lived at a cul-de-sac, a little dead-end street over in Marlborough. And we decided we were going to get our skateboards and we were going to wait for the next car that would come up our street. And one of us would run out and grab a hold of that and let it take us to the end of the street. So we waited, and the very first car to come up our street was an ice cream truck. So my friend Ray goes first. So he jumps out into the middle of the street, and this ice cream truck passes him, and he grabs a hold of the door, and he lets it take him up to the end of our street. Now he and his brother was with me, and we were all together, and Ralph and I were going, yeah, Ray, go Ray! We're running alongside, cheering him on, and he's kind of waving and just cruising along. And then Ralph turns to me and says, Daniel, you're next! So I say, okay. So I grab my skateboard, and as the ice cream truck turns around and prepares to go down the street, I skate out into the middle, and I grab a hold of the door. But the ice cream truck driver got wind of what we were doing. So he decides to teach me a lesson. So the ice cream truck driver guns the engine. So now the ice cream truck is flying down the street, and I'm holding on for dear life onto the back of that door. And I'm swinging around and holding onto the door, only to go past my house and have my mom look out the front window, seeing her child fly down the street on the back of an ice cream truck. And my mom screamed, as only mothers can scream, Daniel! I tell you, I was more afraid of that scream than I ever was of the ice cream truck. Needless to say, I've been grounded ever since, so I can barely go outside anymore. But so much at times like that in our lives, when somebody yells our name, it's usually accompanied by the phrase, you was 10 years old and you call them you stupid idiot for the next 10 years, what are they going to believe when they're 20? That they're a stupid idiot. Put downs. One of the number one reasons why people don't like themselves. Number two, nicknames. Nicknames. How many of you have a nickname? Oh, most of you. Come on, be honest. We all have nicknames. Nicknames are very common. Now, I have a lot of names that, well, they just lend to nicknames. Especially when I was growing up. My first name is Daniel. And when I was growing up, they had the Karate Kid. It was Daniel-san. I heard that a lot growing up. My last name is Elliot. You've seen the movie E.T.? Elliot. So, nicknames are very common for me. Now, some of them, stuff like that, usually those types of nicknames are pretty benign, right? Nobody really bothers with those kinds of nicknames. But the problem is, sometimes nicknames take the things that we're embarrassed about, they put a name on it and broadcast it to everybody. Like one time, I was in high school and I had this really bad haircut. It was awful. I mean, the barber like fell asleep or something, and like I got like really short on the sides, and then on the top it kind of looped up and went down. Couldn't do anything with it, and so my hair it was awful. It was a mess. And so I went to wrestling practice, and I was on the wrestling team when I was in high school, and the coach grabbed me the moment I walked in to wrestling practice, threw me up against the wall right next to a picture of Howdy Doody. That puppet, the really funky looking puppet way back in the 50s. And he said, look, twins! So I was called Howdy for the rest of the year. One of the worst nicknames, though, that I ever had was when I was in 5th or 6th grade. You see, I developed a virus. And if you had given me that magic wand when I was growing up, instantly I knew what I would want to change. It was this virus that I got. You see, around 2nd or 3rd grade, I developed a virus called herpes simplex 1. Herpes simplex 1 is not the sexually transmitted disease. You don't have to worry about that. That's its cousin, herpes simplex 2. Herpes simplex 1 is this nasty virus. Nobody knows how you get it, but when you do, your lip or some part of the inside of your mouth swells up like a balloon. Then it blisters over, cracks and bleeds, and you have this huge scab. It constantly looked like somebody punched me in the mouth. And I could have that anywhere for a week to as long as 6 months. This virus just sitting on my mouth. It was nasty. And when I first got it, my parents didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. We went to the doctor to try to find out what this thing was. And when the doctor told us, it was still so new and so few people knew anything about it that he said the virus is caused by too much sun. Okay, that was kind of weird. Okay, so what do we do about it? Too much sun. How do you prevent your lip from getting in the sun? Right, that's kind of, you wear a mask all day? I mean, that's a little weird. And he said, use something called zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is this cream that you might have seen lifeguards put it on their nose to keep their nose from sunburning, right? Now it comes in like blue and pink and all these funky different colors. Back then it came in one color, white. That was it, white. And so we went to the store and we got this tube of zinc oxide for my lip to keep it from getting in the sun. And I'm in elementary school, so I don't know how to use this stuff. And I grabbed this zinc oxide and I put it on my finger and I go, ew. And I look in the mirror and I try to spread this thing on my lip and it's clumping and falling off and falls into the sink and it's moving over here and I'm just having the worst time. And finally, I get it spread over my lip and I'm just looking and go, oh, gross. It looked nasty. So I went out to my mom. I said, Mom, I don't want to go to school. She said, why don't you want to go to school? I said, Mom, I don't want to go to school. She said, come on, you got to go to school. I said, Look, if I go to school, kids are going to make fun of me. And she said, don't worry, no one will notice. So believing her, I get into the car and I go to my school. And I get out of the car, and the first kid that saw me took one look at my lip and went, ew! What the heck happened to you? Did some bird go right on your lip? They called me turd lip for the rest of the year. That nickname took the one thing I hated, and it gave it a name and told everybody about it. Why don't we like ourselves? Because of nicknames. Third, hope that wasn't me. Third, rejection. Rejection. Often we are rejected by someone that we admire. Rejection. People, whether it's a parent, a teacher, maybe even a dongosa or a moksumi. We respect them, we admire them, we even look up to them, but inevitably they are human and they do something wrong, and we feel rejected. When I was growing up in 6th grade, or going into 6th grade, I went to this amazing camp called the Awana Scholarship Camp. And at this scholarship camp, there was this fantastic speaker named Duilio Bertolini. And when Dewey Bertolini came to our camp and spoke, I mean, everything just was right on. And so all these kids just knew that God was speaking to us, and we were so encouraged and so challenged. And when you have a camp like that and a cool speaker like that, all the kids want to hang out with him. And one day he played softball with a bunch of the kids, and everybody said it was a great time. So we asked him, hey, do you want to play softball the next day? And he said, sure. And so the next day we went out to play softball, but guess what? No Dewey. We waited, and we waited, and we waited. We waited most of our free time. But he never came. And so finally, after about a half an hour of waiting, we left. And during dinner, we tracked him down and we said, hey, Dewey, where were you? And he was like, oh, I just had some other things to do. My best friend got so mad. Even to this day, he can't stand Dewey Bertolini. Why? Because he felt rejection. When someone that we admire doesn't think we are that valuable, we feel rejected. And we often think we're worth the rejection. Finally, we have the wrong values. What are the wrong values? The world says that you have to be a few things in order to be important. That you have to be athletic. You have to be able to shoot a basketball like Kobe Bryant. Or you have to be able to hit a baseball and get the home run record. That's the only way that you could be valuable, is that if you're athletic. Or the world says if you're not athletic, you have to be beautiful. Right? You have to be gorgeous. You have to be like, I don't know movies that much anymore, but for girls, maybe Kim Beckinsale or something like that. You just have to be beautiful. I don't know. You insert the name. Tom Cruise. Who cares? You have to be attractive. Right? Otherwise, you're not valuable. You have to be wealthy. You have to have a lot of money, like Bill Gates. You heard about how rich Bill Gates is? If Bill Gates dropped a $1,000 bill on the floor, he'd actually lose money bending over to pick it up. The guy is just filthy, stinking rich, right? And if we don't have those things, we're not valuable. Or you have to be intelligent. You have to be like an Albert Einstein. You have to be the smartest in your class. You have to be get the top grades in your school. I know a lot of your Korean parents are like, shh, but we want that of our kids. Yes, we all do. I want Samantha to be wonderful and to be able to get good grades. But intelligence doesn't bring value. Because we're smart doesn't make us worth more than somebody else that's not as smart. And the world says if you're not one of these 4 things, if you're not the most athletic, if you're not the most beautiful, if you're not the wealthiest, if you're not the most intelligent, then you're not valuable. Folks, you are valuable because you are made in the image of God. And that's what gives you value. And these wrong values, the church often believes and buys, and we accept it, but we're accepting a lie. These are 4 reasons why we don't like ourselves.